Hello everyone. Today's video is another Q&A video. I'm talking today about the difference between treating Babesia versus Mycoplasma, the frequent finding of H. pylori on GI map testing and why that might be the case, and also about the safety or lack thereof of intravenous chelation therapy. As per usual, nothing I'm saying should be construed as medical advice. This is for informational purposes only. If you need medical advice, please talk to your healthcare provider to get that advice. And if at some point you wouldn't mind taking a quick moment to please like, share, subscribe, and or post a quick comment on the video, I'd really appreciate it. So thanks in advance for taking a second to do that. My computer it ran out of battery, so I do not have the questions up like I normally do to cross-reference, but I think I've got them all committed to memory, so I'm going to do my best. So there was a comment asking about what are the treatment approaches for Babesia and Mycoplasma, and what have I found to be the most successful there. When it comes to treating Babesia and Mycoplasma, in my experience, there is a lot of overlap in terms of the treatment approach that I use. Generally, the herbs that I find to be the most successful at treating Babesia and Mycoplasma are quite similar. Some of the heavy hitters, the top contenders would be Cryptolepis, using Alcornia, using Sida acuta, and then also using Chinese skullcap. So those would be the top kind of contenders for treating Babesia and Mycoplasma in my experience. I tend to also complement those with Japanese knotweed, cat's claw. What else do I put in there? Oh my goodness, it's been a long day. There might be one other one that I'm forgetting, but anyways, it'll probably come back to me. If not, then anyways, those are quite a few really good ones to choose from. Yeah, so using those herbs usually in an herbal tincture format are typically my go-tos for treating Babesia and Mycoplasma. Over and above that, we sometimes need to bring in some immunomodulating treatment with low-dose immunotherapy, depending on the case in question, and then also treating all of the sort of aftermath that has been induced by the Mycoplasma and the Babesia. So Babesia can sometimes cause anemia, so we might need to address that. Mycoplasma can sometimes be really hard on the lungs, so we might need to bring in things like N-acetylcysteine or using nebulizer treatments or things like that. And now I'm going to just start to sound like a broken record here, but we also want to think about, are there other comorbid issues going on? Does the patient also have issues with, say, viruses, like viral reactivation, like Epstein-Barr virus? Does the patient have a concomitant or past mold exposure with mold colonization in their sinuses? Do they have heavy metals? Do they have other toxins afoot? So that doesn't apply to everyone, thankfully, but one or more of those can apply to these cases as well. So we have to make sure that we're treating all the other things that are going on too, if there are other things going on. And then also we need to repair the damage that's been caused in terms of impact on mitochondrial health, impact on detoxification pathways. The body's been fighting off these bacteria, these parasites. The patient might have burned through a lot of resources, a lot of B vitamins, a lot of other nutritional resources. So we need to make sure we're bolstering all that. So I have other videos where I talk about something called the cell danger response. There's different phases of that cell danger response. Happy to post another video on that if there's interest. But basically, we need to the body's kind of in this assuming that it's like a chronic mycoplasmosis, babesiosis thing, not just an acute thing that's going on. The body's been through this it's kind of like a war zone, and so we need to do the damage control, get the healing response going, get the reintegration of all the different parts of the body back into place, and then the patient goes off on their merry way and is feeling better again. So there's sometimes several steps needed along the way. And don't get me wrong, sometimes we just work with the herbs and everything's just hunky-dory and the patient's on track. But for the really, really challenging, really persisting cases, we oftentimes need to pull out all the stops. So I'll leave it there for now. If there's more specific questions, I'm happy to comment on that or post additional information, but those are my kind of general thoughts about Babesia and Mycoplasma. So thanks for the question. The next question was about the GI map. So I posted a video quite some time ago talking about the GI map test and why I have concerns about the clinical usefulness of that test. So you can cross-reference that video if you're so inclined. Go to my YouTube channel if you're not already on there and check that out. Just keyword search my name and GI map. But somebody posted questions asking, it was one of the things I had mentioned in that video that makes me sort of question one of the reasons I question the utility of the GI map test is because it's very, very rare that I'll see a GI map test and it doesn't test positive. The patient doesn't test positive for H. pylori, and yet they'll go and get the standard, H. pylori stool test, which is generally considered to be one of the 2 gold standard tests for testing for H. pylori, and it'll come back negative. So it seems to be fraught with false positives for H. pylori. So someone was asking, why is it that that's the case? And they acknowledged that I'd be speculating because I don't know for sure, because I don't know for sure because nobody's gone and studied that to my knowledge. They were wondering, is it because it's just picking up really small amounts of, say, inconsequential H. pylori in a patient sample, or is it maybe just a straight up false positive? So really good question. You're right, I don't know for sure. I wish I did, because I like knowing things, but I don't know for sure. But my suspicion is that it's not just a straight up false positive. My suspicion is that it is probably just picking up trace amounts of H. pylori, but that perhaps the H. pylori has just not actually been able to colonize the patient's stomach, and therefore it's not actually problematic H. pylori. Because with GI map testing, it's DNA testing, and so to my knowledge, whether there's just a teeny little bit of DNA from H. pylori that's not colonize the stomach, whether it's alive or dead, that those DNA primers are going to bind to that little bit of DNA, and it's going to amplify, and you're going to see a certain amount of H. pylori DNA coming up. So we're going to kind of get this false positive in that, yes, the DNA is there, but it's not actually clinically actionable. With H. pylori, to my understanding, depending on which resource you look at, whether it's the CDC, whether you're looking at Health Canada or some other government agency, it seems that in much of the world, depending on the area you're in, between 50 to 66% of folks are colonized with H. pylori, which is kind of crazy. And we can transmit H. pylori to one another, whether it's through more intimate, kissing contact, or it doesn't have to be that intimate, to my understanding. So there's a little bit of mystery around exactly how is H. pylori able to be transmitted. Is it a salivary thing? Is it a fecal oral route thing? It's somebody in the house didn't wash their hands quite well enough. I don't know, and we don't need to get into that. We'll keep it a pleasant video. But I think that the reality of it is that because of that prevalence of H. pylori, we are likely passing it, or it's attempting to get passed between us all the time. And so I think that even in folks who don't have a full-blown colonization, there's still going to be trace amounts that they're being exposed to, not enough to get colonized, so it's still passing through their system, and then they're picking up that little bit in the stool. So that's my understanding of it. But if anybody knows a better answer, I'd love to hear it, so please post in the comment section below if that's the case. Very last one, really quick one here, is just a comment on one of my videos about IV chelation therapy, and I don't have the question up in front of me, but it said something like, why is it that there are things online saying that IV chelation therapy causes kidney failure and I think shock and anaphylaxis and people's arms to fall off. Okay, I made that one up. So why is it reported to be so dangerous? And so I have a video where I think I talk about this in more detail, but just very quickly, there have been some case reports of folks dying from intravenous chelation therapy because the wrong chelator was used. The wrong version of that chelator was used. The type that was meant to be used as a long 3-hour IV drip was given as a push, and then that caused massive hypocalcemia and an induced death. And I believe that happened in 2 different cases in different places. So awful, tragic. It was a medical error and shouldn't have happened. So it's not that the chelation was dangerous, it was that it was used in hands that made a really, really bad mistake. In terms of kidney damage, to my understanding, there are studies showing that when IV chelation is used in folks who have notable kidney function compromise, and the dosage is not adjusted to account for that kidney compromise, then that it has caused kidney damage. That's why we never do chelation therapy unless we first check the patient's kidney status. If their kidneys are compromised a little bit, we can still use chelation as long as we adjust the dose down appropriately, so we're not overdoing it, because essentially when we use a chelator, we're hauling lots of metals out of the cells and getting them to be flushed out. Most of that flushing happens through the bowels. A good portion of it happens through the kidneys. So as long as we dose adjust, then we can keep the kidneys nice and happy and healthy. And we've just never seen any kidney damage, any death from chelation therapy in my practice after thousands of treatments. I hope this was of interest, and I'll leave it there for now.